This is Sexy Funny Raw, where we chat all about the world of sex, from dating and relationships all the way to the adult industry itself. I'm Silvia Saige, and this is my Pornspective, answering all the questions you weren't even brave enough to ask Google. Get ready, because Sexy Funny Raw starts now. Hey, hey, hey. Welcome back, you all, to another episode of Sexy Funny Raw. I am your host, Silvia Saige, and of course, welcome back my co-host, Dr. Eddie, giving us all public health perspective. Everyone's so happy you're here, Dr. Eddie. You hear that? And to my right, I am welcoming back our lovely guest for this month. It is Monarey Martinez, comedian and podcaster. And on this episode, we are going to be talking about a topic in which is a very important topic to me personally, avoiding pregnancy, something I have done very well for 38 years, with a little help, of course, from my favorite Plan B, always my Plan A. So, yes. Absolutely. I've also been on birth control since I was 15 years old. My dad made a very quick, you mentioned in the last episode, Dr. Eddie, you had a very quick, uncomfortable conversation with your father. I also had that about birth control. We were driving home from high school. I was 15 years old, and my dad just turned down the radio, and he said, I don't want to know when, I don't want to know where, and I don't want to know with who, but if you're having sex, we need to get you on the pill. And I just said, well, we need to get me on the pill. And he goes, okay, and turned back up the radio. Wow. That was the end of our conversation.
But at least he did that.
But effective.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was like, my dad's never said anything about sex to me at all.
Did you start birth control young?
No, I didn't. I started birth control not until I was like in my mid-20s.
Really?
Yeah.
So in your teens, and were you having sex in your teens and 20s?
I didn't. I had sex when I was like 18. That was when I lost my virginity.
Okay.
Yeah. And then
were you using condoms?
When I was 18, yes, I was like paranoid.
Okay.
And then but I was always like in long-term relationships or whatever. So then I had a pregnancy scare and I was like, I need birth control. And then, but what was bad with me about it is I was so inconsistent with the pill.
Right.
And then I would be single for a while and then I wasn't on birth control. And then, I'm actually not on birth control now either.
So you're just winging it currently?
I'm just winging it. Yeah, I'm not the best example.
That is terrifying to me.
Yeah.
Now, granted, I have sex for a living, and the thought of having a porn baby is so terrifying. I can't even imagine playing Who's the Daddy on that game. Yeah. Maury would have to open up a whole new segment. Be like, Maury,
Maury, bring them all down.
Here we go. Let's call my agent, see who was on the list for the past couple months, and eliminate people out. Okay. Birth control has always been a hot topic, right? These days it's even more important than ever with what we have going on with Wavy and Road and the Supreme Court. It's disgusting. But it's not just a woman's issue, and that's something we definitely need to address. This is an issue that affects men just as much as it does women. It may truly fall on a woman, but there's definitely things a man can do to avoid pregnancy as well. And let's talk about it. Okay. Despite medical advances in birth control becoming more accessible for some, but not all women, unplanned pregnancies still remain fairly common, of course. There are a lot of myths surrounding contraception, so let's start with some of them. Myth number 1, you cannot get pregnant if you have sex during your period. I have heard so many people say this.
Yeah. Is that not true?
No.
It's not true.
Okay.
You
were how many years old when you learned this?
35, baby.
There we go.
You're less fertile, but it's certainly still possible. Absolutely.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
I actually just had this conversation with somebody online because, they were very pro-life, and it's your choice if you want to be pro-life, and that's what you do with your body, but don't do it with mine.
Right.
So I had this argument, and they were like, oh, well, a woman can only get pregnant for, I think they I don't even know what the math they did, but it was like 60 days out of the year. And I was like,
I don't think
where are
that's
you
right.
getting your
Yeah.
education, sir? I was like,
1 week per month per cycle, maybe is what they're
I
thinking.
have no idea. I was just like, where is your sex education coming from,
Right.
sir? Because it is not accurate. I think people get a lot of like misconceptions of like, you even hear like a woman can't be pregnant when she is currently pregnant, but that is also false information. She could be pregnant and then become pregnant with a second child at the same time. I've literally seen it on probably Maury. But
Wow.
yeah, there's just
That becomes a little bit more complicated.
of course it does.
yeah.
Sure.
Of course it does. But what I'm saying is that people think that there's just such a limited place where your body has to be in ovulation in order to create a baby. And that's just not true at all. Of
Right.
course, like you said, there are certainly times where it is more
Likely.
yes, that you will become pregnant, but it definitely doesn't take away the fact that you could become pregnant at any point in time.
Right.
So, huge myth. Okay, so myth number 2, that if a person douches or washes the vagina immediately after sex, that pregnancy can be avoided. Also false. Those swimmers are very quick, and you are not going to get to them in the
Yeah.
time frame that they are going to get to your egg. Now, I want to say, it says here that once ejaculation occurs, sperm can be in the uterus within 20 minutes. I think that's slow. Does not seem slow? Is there a maze happening in there? Like, why is it taking 20 minutes for
Where are they
sperm to
going?
get right?
Yeah, are they getting lost
Right.
in directions?
Right.
Yeah.
I think probably what we want to think about is within 20 minutes, you could already be pregnant.
See, that's
Oh,
terrifying.
right?
Yeah. I'm like, oof. Yeah. I was like, this explains a lot. Yeah.
Meanwhile, I'm thinking the sperm are just in there taking wrong turns, bumping into shit, No, they're just impregnating you really
Immediately.
quickly.
Yeah.
Damn, terrifying.
Terrifying. Yeah.
All right. Well, don't worry about douching because little fast swimmers are in there. All right. Myth number 3. You cannot get pregnant if you have unprotected sex in a hot tub, which I don't know. This sounds like a myth that a high schooler made up.
Yeah.
But it says that sperm does not like the heat, but it does not kill the sperm, right?
Absolutely. And so heat can slow it down, can prevent the speedy progression of pregnancy.
Yeah.
But it's not going to stop it. That's for sure.
Yeah. So hot tub sex is still baby making sex.
And who wants to have the hot tub is so uncomfortable to have sex in. It's like burnt. I'm like, ow, no.
Any water in general
No.
is a nightmare.
I've tried it so many, and I'm like, it's
No.
not happening. No.
It seems it seems like water would be a great lubrication, but it's the exact opposite of lubrication.
Totally. And their penises are like floating like a little rubber ducky in
Right.
the water. And
Yeah.
you're like, it's not.
And your body needs water.
There's something going on there. If the penis is floating like a rubber ducky on the water, I just want to say that it should still be attached.
Yeah, it's like,
I'm not sure what's going on
and I'm
there.
like, I don't know.
What kind of sex are you having in that hot tub, Monterey? That's what we
Just
want
an
to know.
adventure. Just an adventure every time.
Oh, that one's good.
Yeah.
That one's good.
That. Yeah.
Just floating on the water. I love it. Okay. Myth number 4. The pull-out method can keep me from getting pregnant. False. Pre-ejaculation can contain sperm, which is very capable of conceiving a child because that is the most eager sperm. It's ready to get out and it's ready to impregnate you.
Yeah.
You know?
That's such a big one.
The pull-out method does not work.
The pull-out method, it's better than ejaculating inside as far as the probability.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
But it's absolutely still possible. So to use that as your main method, which a lot of people do,
Yes.
it becomes incredibly dangerous. Like,
Yeah.
you're living on the edge.
Yeah, I mean, some people like to live on the edge. Let's just be honest, but not me. Definitely not me.
Yeah.
I am a pull-out method, a birth control, and a Plan B girl. Like I am just like all of the above.
Yeah.
Like if I think you stayed in for 1 second too long, I'm going to the pharmacy, CVS.
Yeah.
Save one for me. So, myth number 5: emergency contraceptive is basically the same thing as abortion. False, right? Because emergency contraceptive is basically like a super strong version of a birth control pill. So it stops ovulation from occurring. And as long as the ovulation doesn't occur, no sperm can fertilize the egg. So it's not necessarily an abortion. It's not like the baby who has been made that this plan B is now knocking out of your vagina, but it's just making it so the egg cannot be fertilized. So it's just a very high dose of a birth control. Correct?
Yeah.
Makes me feel so much better about myself.
Yeah.
My question, though, since I have been taking birth control for so long and because I have used Plan B on so many different occasions, is that going to do anything to my body if I ever did want to have a child? Is it going to make my chances of conceiving harder in the future?
I'd say, well, there's a couple of variables there that we might want to consider. Okay. Age is going to be a variable, right? You're young and gorgeous, absolutely.
Not so young, but yes.
But that does change well into your 30s, right? And so at that point, we're talking about somewhat dangerous pregnancies when you're late into your 30s. You also have to consider the possibility of what it's doing to your hormones, because a lot of those birth controls have a variety of different hormones. So sometimes, from what I understand, gynecologists will have you go off the pill to regulate and give you some time and then check your hormones at that point. So there's a couple of like stages if you wanted to do that.
Got you.
The science itself doesn't suggest that it becomes harder for any other reason. Just typically age, hormone levels, all of those things are variables that impact the possibility of getting pregnant.
Just curious with you, Monarey. So you said that you're not currently on a birth control. Did you get off because you were having any adverse reactions?
When I took the pill, that's the one where I was like, oh, I felt like emotionally completely different. But then I took the ring and that never bothered me.
Interesting.
Like I didn't have weight gain. I didn't have like any emotional changes. I didn't have like irritability. But when I would take the pill, one, I would be inconsistent, but then when I was consistent, I was like, I don't like the way this is making me feeling.
Right. And if you are inconsistent on the pill, it basically has
doesn't help.
Yeah, it does nothing for you.
It does nothing.
It has to honestly be at the same time every single day within, an hour or two window, I would say. But yeah, it needs to be really consistent. I mean, I've been on the pill since I was 15, so it's a part of like brushing my teeth, taking my birth control. So it's like so ingrained in me that I don't think about it, but it definitely will not have any use to you whatsoever if you're not consistent with it.
Right.
So, good to know. So now, obviously, I'm going to jump because you mentioned the
ring.
The ring, yeah. So I'm going to actually jump into the different types of contraceptions that women can use. So we have everything from implants to IUDs, birth control shots, birth control sponge, vagina rings, and I had never even heard of before.
Yeah, I've never heard of a sponge or a shot.
Right?
I'm like, what the hell?
The patch, the diaphragm, cervical cap, spermicide, and gels. All of these different ways for a woman to abstain from childbirth. Okay, so let's get into them because I had never heard of an implant before. So the implant is basically a tiny, thin rod about the size of a matchstick, and the implant releases hormones into your body that prevent you from getting pregnant. Where is this being? Is it in your...
It's in your arm.
It's in your arm.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have a few friends and colleagues that have done it. And so they have you can see a little bit of raised skin right there.
Yeah.
It's very small, very thin.
Oh, maybe I want that one. I'm like, okay, that one sounds interesting. Because I'm like scared of an IUD. Because like my friend got it and it was like the most painful experience.
And that's in your vagina.
That's in your
uterus.
In your uterus.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. See, I didn't know that either. The IUD, and that's the one that's like a T in your uterus. Is that correct?
Right. Yeah, and so there's been horrible things that have happened with IUDs historically, and there's two different ones. There's a hormone based, and then there's a copper based because sperm doesn't like copper.
Really?
So then there's like a coiling.
Just throw some pennies up my pussy. Just call it a day.
Let's a little wishing well. Yeah.
Let's not do that at all.
Yeah.
But the non-hormonal is copper. But that little T kind of shape that you're talking about, it has perforated parts for some women. So it certainly has the potential of being
Harmful.
Harmful for sure.
For both the woman and the man, right?
I mean, mostly for the woman.
Okay.
I mean, like you had said, the onus is often on the woman for a lot of these things. And so it really does become dealing with hormones, the woman, vaginal condoms, vaginal rings, implants. A lot of these things are only on the woman, which is problematic because we don't have a lot of solutions for men beyond condoms and vasectomies, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But, you know, spermicides help, you know, and a lot of things you want to kind of join together with spermicides and gels.
And I have a question about the spermicide because I've never used spermicide either. So it's something you use before you have sex. Is it almost like a lube base also, or is that not having any?
You don't want to use it as a lube.
It's not.
Okay. No, you want to specifically use it to kill sperm.
And do you just inject it?
Yeah.
Like a syringe, like I would inject a tampon
not with
type
a needle,
of thing. But like I'm thinking of like a tampon, being inserted. It's kind of like that, but with a fluid, with a liquid.
Yeah, you usually use it in combination with like a cervical cap, or like a cervical cap and a diaphragm aren't that different, except they're shaped differently, and a cervical cap is smaller.
And some condoms have spermicide on them as well, right?
They do, absolutely. But you can buy spermicide at the pharmacy.
Okay.
And so, like, if you're using a diaphragm, why wouldn't you also want to use, like, in combination? It's a really good, pretty effective approach to avoiding pregnancy that you have control over.
Right. Now, you mentioned the cervical cap. So is the cervical cap kind of the same as a diaphragm, but it's just smaller, right?
It's smaller, and it's shaped, I guess, it's shaped like a sailor's hat, like a little sailor's hat that covers the cervix specifically, whereas a diaphragm covers more area.
And is that permanently in you? Or
No. You can take these out the same way you can take out the diaphragm.
Oh, okay.
I just imagine you putting a little sailor's cap on a dick and being like, go put it in there now. Just stick it up there.
Hey, boy.
All aboard.
Right. Yeah. Do they not? Do they not move around in there?
I mean, they certainly can, but they're pretty effective at staying in the area that you're placing them. You're placing it to cover the cervix.
So dangerous to me.
I mean, most of them are like firm-ish.
Right.
They're not like hard, but they're not soft either. So they do cover the necessary areas.
So do you put them in kind of like a closed umbrella and then they open up inside?
Sometimes you do end up folding them.
I don't know.
I'm so curious. I don't know either.
Folding them in a little bit to put them in, absolutely.
Yeah, it's kind of like a diva cup.
Right. How do you get them out?
Carefully.
Yeah,
I'm like, I don't. That was like my hard part about the ring too, because it's like you gotta like dig up there, and you gotta like when it's like time to take it out. Yeah, because it's like you take it out like every 3 weeks or whatever, and you have to replace a new one. So it's like, you know, sometimes you gotta like just lodge up in there and then try to like get it out or whatever. And it's like it could be a fun game, you know. You're like, how fast can I do it this time? But also you're like, yeah. But that's why the one that is in the arm sounds interesting to me. Okay, this is my question of like, if you're like a hippie type of person, you're like, I don't want like hormones or like, I don't want like, you know, external like chemicals in my body. Like, what do you think is like the best birth control for a woman who's like trying not to have like chemicals and stuff in their body?
I mean, a good majority of them do have a specific hormone, which is what's preventing either ovulation. It's preventing a very specific processes from happening. So the implant wouldn't be good in that case because that's hormone based.
Got it.
Right. So a lot of these things are going to be hormone based. You could use the copper IUD.
Put pennies in your pussy.
No, not pennies. You could use condoms as well, of course, because that's always option number one.
Right.
I don't know. So the birth control sponge is an option.
Also sounds like you would get it lost.
Yeah.
Right.
Sure. I mean, I don't know what the literature says about loss of vaginal sponges. I'd have to look into that.
But what is a freaking sponge? Like it's a little baby sponge that's in my vagina?
It's a small, round, squishy plastic little sponge.
Plastic?
It's plastic, yeah. It's like squishy plastic that you put in your vagina before sex. And so you put it in there and
and so it soaks up the sperm. Well, you're not, but he still shouldn't be coming inside of me.
He should not.
Yeah. So I was like, wait a
You
minute.
usually use it in conjunction with spermicide.
Oh, okay.
Got it.
But then spermicide, it depends if you want to consider that a chemical or not. So in your specific question, the options are going to be a little bit limited, but the diaphragm might work. A cervical cap might work if you don't want hormones.
Okay.
See, I was looking at this shot here. I was pretty convinced that I want to do the shot because it's only every 3 or 4 months that you have to go to your healthcir provider
That's
and get the
depot
new shot.
right?
The depot shot, yeah.
Yeah.
So between that and the implant can last up to 5 years, and then they take it out.
Yeah,
and then
but
they'll
see,
put in
that's
another
scary
one.
for me because I'm
Yeah.
so old. In like 5 years, I'm like, you're literally taking away any chance.
Right.
Well, you can have it removed whenever you want. You don't have to have it in for 5 years. You can
We're
have it. You can have it for up to 5 years.
Got it.
And then they have to take it out.
Okay.
And then they can put in a different one. Right. And so you have the option. So you can.
I like that option
you
the
can
best.
Fix
then.
a lot
Yeah.
of these things, but they do have to it's a small incision, and so you do have to go through that.
The depot shot?
No,
the implant. Yeah.
So the depot shot,
Just a shot.
it's just a shot. Yeah.
Yeah.
But do people gain weight? Because I feel like my sister took the depot
Oh.
shot. She took it because she wanted to gain weight.
Oh.
She was like, because we're bony. And so I was like, can my boobs grow? I was like, which one's going to make my boobs grow? That's the birth control I want. Yeah.
What did they tell you?
Yeah, she took the depot. She did gain weight. And so
Okay.
I was like, can I do that? I was like, I just want, but I had a friend that took the IUD and her boobs got bigger. And so I'm like,
I don't think you can generate where you gain the weight.
but I'm like,
is
I
the
want
problem.
it. I was like, Doc, come on, where are my boobs gonna
Where
go?
do I get the tits?
Yeah.
How do I
How?
get the tits?
I think that's a different conversation.
Okay, so obviously we know the bajillion ways that a woman can prevent sex. Now let's talk about the very few ways that men you can also help in this situation. Vasectomy. You could get a vasectomy. Now, this is a real medical procedure. You are going to go under for this, but it is a less recovery time than a woman getting sterilization, as well as it's the cheaper option. I don't know if that matters to a whole lot of people, but I
Yeah.
will say if you're money-wise, considering it for your household, it's definitely cheaper for the man to get a vasectomy and an easier recovery time for the man to get a vasectomy. And it's reversible as opposed to sterilization for a woman is no turning back, right?
Yeah. Or an abortion where everybody's gonna pick at you,
Lose their
and-
fucking minds.
Yeah.
Yeah. So sterilization, in case you're not understanding what I'm saying here, that's just getting your tubes tied for a woman, right?
Yeah, but it's so much more involved than a vasectomy. So it can be dangerous. There's certainly dangers and significant repercussions that could happen because it's a serious surgery. Whereas for men, it's certainly less evasive, easier recovery time. It is still a surgery. It is still, dangerous as far as any surgery is concerned, but it's easier to recover. It's less a big deal as
Right.
far as a surgeon is concerned.
I had a quick question. So you did mention on the vasectomy, you said that there is like no changes in the way a man would have an orgasm or feels the ejaculation. There's no change in his cum. It will still look and feel and taste the same after a vasectomy. Is that the truth for a woman after getting her tubes tied? Is anything changing for her in the sexual department? Is her ability to cum any different? All of those things.
There's not a lot of data that suggests that that's a repercussion of it.
Okay. Just curious.
Because it doesn't impact the clitoris. It doesn't impact a lot of those
Yeah.
very specific pleasure areas.
Right.
And so this is deep down inside,
Got it.
right?
Okay, good to know. That was my own curiosity. I was like, if it's not changing anything for him and it changed something for us, I'm gonna be
Yeah,
pissed.
you're like, then you get a vasectomy. Yeah.
Right. Dr. Reddy, is there anything else that you feel vital that we add into this episode when we're
Goodness.
talking about any other ways that a man can really do his due diligence to help with the avoiding of pregnancy other than the vasectomy?
Being willing to have these conversations, I
True.
think, is a huge deal. And so, but there's not a lot of training and experience to have these conversations. It's very
Right.
much a woman's. The onus is always on the woman to deal with a lot of this stuff.
Yeah.
And so that's a conversation I think we all need to change generally.
Yeah.
And the only way that would happen is to talk about what kind of birth control are you on, whether you, and of course this is all for someone, these are all options for people that have access to health care. And that's not the same for everybody.
Totally.
And so, it really does matter if you have access or not, because most of these options cost some sort of money.
Totally.
Right? And so if the pull-out method is the only option that you have access to, well, then you really do need to think about condoms.
Right.
Right? Realistically, a lot of people don't. I mean, I think it's really important that we are more open to having the conversations in general. That's
Agree.
what I would say.
Could not agree with that anymore. All right. Well, that is going to be it for this episode. Thank you so much, Dr. Eddie, for all of your advice. We really appreciate you. And Monarey, if you can tell the people where they can find you.
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram at Monarey M, and that's also my Twitter. And on YouTube, you can just find me under Monarey Martinez.
Perfect. Thank you so much for being a guest here with us today. And until next time, you guys, click that little subscribe button, and we'll see you next time. Adios. Yay!